Well, my friends, you may not know this, but we're at record numbers of traffic deaths here in Washington. So Governor Jay Inslee announced over the weekend that we're going to be banning cars. No, wait, he didn't do that. So Attorney General Bob Ferguson announced we're going to be banning cars, right? Nope, didn't do that either. So the question is, why such hypocrisy when it comes to guns? I mean, we have stabbings that go on here. I don't hear them talking about banning Cutco or anything like that. Joining us now, Editor-in-Chief of Gun Mag, Dave Workman. Thanks so much for being with us, buddy.
Oh, you bet, Ari. Nice to chat with you again. It's kind of a weird circumstance, but you've got it pegged. And, of course, the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms came out swinging on this and say, hey, wait a minute. It's one of those pauses where you say, hey, wait a minute, and then you're waiting. Well, wait for what? Well, how come they're not doing this? And I think the issue here is the different ways that we address violence associated with firearms and violent death associated with all other kinds of things, including traffic accidents.
Right.
So you're right. And of course, Alan Gottlieb over at the Citizens Committee was right, too. The hypocrisy here is staggering. We've got people who are driving behind the wheel. They're either drunk or stoned. And it's okay to smoke marijuana in the state of Washington, even if you want to get behind the wheel of a car. We've got people who are driving well above the posted legal speed limit. I see them every morning on I-90 coming into Bellevue from where I live in North Bend. It's like the speed limits just don't exist. But nobody's out there really addressing this problem. Of course, the sheriff and the law enforcement people over in Yakima County, where this whole story started, they're very concerned about it. But the rest of the state, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, what's for lunch? That's where we get.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this, and it's absolute insanity to me because I actually think they have the exact same cause. This is something we said was going to happen when they started defunding the police back in 2020 in response to the riots. And we said, you realize if you get rid of the police, not only is normal crime going to go up, but also things like traffic deaths because people are going to be zipping around like madmen because if you have less police officers, they're going to say we need to prioritize the murder and deprioritize things like speeding tickets. I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but I don't hear Bob Ferguson talking about it. I don't hear Bruce Harrell talking about it. I don't hear Jay Inslee talking about it. All I hear about is guns, but never any talk about law enforcement.
Well, yeah, and, this story really hits a raw nerve with me. It's something that you don't know, but a lot of KVI listeners do because I've told this to John Carlson. Early in my career, when I was the editor of a weekly newspaper out in Snoqualmie, I would be called by the state patrol out there to come photograph fatal traffic accidents. And I can tell you that I've seen a lot of different kinds of violence in my life, but the violence that happens to a human body when two cars going 60 or 70 miles an hour collide is something you really don't want to see. And I've seen a lot of that. And for people to kind of not be concerned about that or to wring their hands and give this, oh, gee whiz, we got to do something about that, and then turn right around and start blaming every gun owner in the state for every time some bad guy shoots another bad guy in downtown Seattle. There is really something wrong with that equation.
We're talking with Dave Workman, who's the editor-in-chief of Gun Mag, about how there's now record traffic fatalities, and yet nobody's talking about banning cars. Now, remember that Waukesha parade where that guy drove an SUV through the whole thing? That was a guy who was a prolific offender. I mean, how many of these cases are prolific offenders? How many of these cases are illegal immigrants? I went off on Friday. On Friday, I went absolutely bonkers. This case in Ohio where there's this illegal immigrant driving around in a minivan, ran a school bus on the first day of school off the road, killed a kid, injured 23, 26 others, and yet I don't hear anybody calling to do anything about that. But anytime it's a gun, it's always that, not the criminal who's wielding it.
Well, exactly. And you're right. Some of these people are recidivists. I mean, it's almost like a matter of their daily course of life where they show up in traffic court, they plead, they get out, the judge slaps them on the wrist, and then 5 days later they're in another traffic beef. And one night, recalling my earlier life, I did photograph an accident that involved a teenage kid. I was there. I saw the kid. The dad came home and got the kid. 3 hours later, I think it was, I got another phone call. This is like, I don't know, 0 dark 30. Hey, Dave, we need you to bring your camera, blah, blah, blah. I drive up, and here's the same kid standing there.
Unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. And I recall writing about that at the Snoqualmie Valley Record. And that's just, it's too bad when you treat people with kid gloves who really deserve to get socked in the mouth. This is the kind of thing that you can expect. And when you prioritize violence involving firearms, which is, that's a bad thing. We don't want bad guys having guns, but you can't hold the good guys responsible. It's like that meme going around on Facebook. You know how to stop drunk drivers? Take the licenses away from all the people who drive illegally. It doesn't make any sense the way that we are addressing a serious and deadly problem in the state of Washington.
In the last few minutes we have with Dave Workman, who's the editor-in-chief of Gun Mag. So over the weekend, I think it was on Friday, we heard the news that yet another judge has upheld the assault weapons ban from Bob Ferguson. And looking at that, I couldn't help but notice that the judge is the exact same one who likes releasing criminals. So sure, we'll just release the criminals but give you nothing to defend yourself with. You notice that case?
I kind of noticed it. Yeah, I was a little off the grid over the weekend. I mean, the Labor Day weekend, the only 2 days of a 3-day weekend I actually got to get off. But, that's the kind of thing I wish people would pay closer attention to who is running for the position of judge in your county. These are the kinds of things that we need to pay attention to. Elections do matter, and even for judges who run for election. We got an election coming up in November. We got another one coming up in 2024. Pay attention, people, because that's when the law does rest in your hands, and you can overthrow the government legally.
I do like that. Every few years you get a chance to overthrow the government legally. That's very good.
Yeah.
I am stealing that from you, Dave, and giving you no credit whatsoever. Just kidding. That's
Go ahead. Go ahead. People do that to me all the time. It's all right.
Dave Workman, editor-in-chief of Gun Mag, thank you so much for joining us today and your insight, buddy. Always appreciate it.
You bet. Okay.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.